Welcome back. A spate of armed robberies has affected local small businesses, with bandits making off with cash and supplies. On Thursday, Builder's Choice in Lafargue was robbed of $16,000 worth of cash and other items. CCTV footage of the incident circulated on social media, showing a female staff member being accosted and slapped by a gun-toting bandit. On Friday, an armed robbery took place at Taz Plus at Lance Road, Castries. Two masked men, one brandishing a gun, stormed into the business, demanding cash and robbing employees of their personal effects. The masked bandits escaped with an undisclosed sum of cash. On Saturday, at about 2:46 p.m., a pair of gun-wielding bandits robbed the Dr. Freezer's branch on High Street, Castries, making off with cash. The incident was caught on the establishment's CCTV cameras, showing the pair, who were wearing masks, in action, with one holding a gun to the face of the cashier, whilst the other hands over a bag and orders employees to place money inside. The incidents are under police investigation. On Sunday evening, the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party launched its 2021 manifesto. The leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, explained the plans to ensure that members of the public have more disposable income and that the economy grows.
With less than 1 week before the 2021 general elections, the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party has issued its manifesto. On Sunday, the SLP made a declaration of their policy, aims and top priorities for if they are elected to form the next government. Leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, explained that the Labour Party is offering the people of St. Lucia clear, balanced and practical strategies that will help them achieve 3 national objectives.
Stabilize our economy to save jobs, businesses and families. 2. Reposition St. Lucia for growth, so that our people can look to a more sustained future. And 3, restore good and honest governance, so that government, guided by democratic principles and the rule of law, works for and not against the people.
The current administration has been criticized heavily for the amounts of borrowing done during their tenure. The deputy leader of the SLP, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, explained that this is one practice that will not be mimicked by a Labour Party government. He went on to add that there will be optimal use of all resources and that there will be transparency and accountability when monies are borrowed.
We will invite the Caribbean Development Bank and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to undertake an assessment of government debt. We will examine and disclose to the public the terms and conditions of such debt. We will restructure the national debt to make it more affordable and manageable, ensuring that there are resources left to take care of the needs of our country and our people. We will review the Uranora International Airport project to eliminate unnecessary borrowing and to ensure that St. Lucia receives value for money. We will also review government procurement regulations, including tendering, bidding, and contracting practices, in order to address corruption and wastage and ensure optimal use of scarce public resources.
Pierre explained that the manufacturing sector will be specifically catered for and outlined the plans that would help the people of St. Lucia hold them accountable for the promises made.
We will support the financial restructuring of companies which need to reposition for future growth and diversification. This will be done by suspending stamp duties and similar transaction fees on specific intra-group and intercompany transactions between parent and subsidiary companies within the same ownership. We also understand that many businesses are financially stressed. So, we'll offer corporate tax amnesty to companies. That means if a company settles its outstanding taxes within 90 days or enter into a payment plan approved by the Comptroller of Inland Revenue, government will waive the penalties and interest due on outstanding amounts.
The St. Lucia Labour Party says it has now equipped the general public with many reasons as to why they should be elected to office in the upcoming elections. The manifesto can be accessed on the party's website, voteslp.org. Genevieve Gonzaga, Hot 7 TV, Election Central.
Results for the 2021 Common Entrance Examinations will be released on Wednesday, the 21st of July at 10:30 a.m. As is customary, the presentation of overall results will be made to district education officers and principals first, and then results will be presented to students by their respective schools. As a result of the ongoing challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic, this year's presentation will be made via Zoom to all districts and will be streamed via the Department of Education's Facebook pages. Analysis of overall student performance and performance by institution and subject area will be disclosed at Wednesday's presentation, as well as the way forward for the Common Entrance Examinations. This year, a total of 2,148 students sat the Common Entrance exam. Tourism officials say St. Lucia's reintroduction of the cruise sector is steadily gaining momentum as 116 more cruise visitors were welcomed to St. Lucia today aboard Seabourn Odyssey. The vessel was anchored just outside of Rodney Bay, and visitors and staff were brought to shore at the Pigeon Island National Landmark. On hand to welcome the vessel were cruise agents, Cox and Company Limited, management at the St. Lucia National Trust, and staff of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. Tourism officials say since the reintroduction of the cruise sector on the 29th of June, 1,075 visitors have graced our shores. The SLTA and SNASPA are working with all cruise lines to finalize their schedules. Additional cruise calls are in fact set for July come the 20th, the 21st and 26th. 9 calls are already scheduled for August, 38 calls have been scheduled for November, and 74 for December 2021. Government borrowing has been high, and many are concerned about the adverse effects and how it may affect the incoming administration if it is to change. Political and social commentator Richard Peterkin has offered his advice on managing the country's debt burden.
The issue of debt and its repayment is of paramount importance for any incoming government, as it serves as a guide to how policies are constructed. It is no secret that COVID and its aftermath is certainly responsible for the increase in government borrowing, but many are concerned about possible consequences. Political commentator Richard Peterkin advises any incoming government to properly assess and evaluate the budget to adequately address the national debt.
To any, let's say, different government coming in and to the existing one, I'd say take another look at where we are now, a hard look. Determine in your budget, if you want to change your budget now, or if you take another look at it because things have changed, whether we have the capacity to carry out the things we want to do without having to go to any more borrowings. Now, normally, governments would use 2 means of raising revenue. One is taxes, and one is borrowings. And so if it means that you need money, but you don't want to borrow, then guess where you're going? You know what I mean? And of course, we know that imposing higher taxes is the worst time in the world to do right now.
Peterkin further emphasizes that governments have a difficult decision to make as to whether they should repay the debt immediately or cater to the needs of the people.
If you're going to have to borrow, or you say that you need more money for social support, you find out, A, what is available. And as I said before, the IMF has now come back and said they have this $50 billion for developing countries. Second, find out, all right, what are the terms? And based on that, even though you know it's taking up your debt and your debt to GDP, whether in fact this country can afford, A, to pay it back over time, or B, not to help the people that are in distress, right? In other words, there are 2 things. You may have, there is a little problem, there is a question mark about repayment, but at the same time, there are people in need. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet, take the risk, and say, we need to help them. That's the most important thing. Once we get them up and on their feet, they can help the economy improve, and we can pay for it over time.
Debt and debt repayment are recurring themes associated with small island developing states, and St. Lucia is no different. Any incoming government has a tall task ahead in effectively addressing the national debt. For the Hot 7 Nightly News, I am Karim Nelson.
Government borrowing and spending is at the forefront of political discussions. Some are making the argument that the present UWP administration has borrowed too much money without reasonable explanation. Former Independent Senator Everestus Jamari is questioning why the current administration felt it necessary to borrow money for road rehabilitation when it introduced a fuel tax. More in this report.
Questions are emerging surrounding government borrowing and possible motives. There has been much speculation concerning the 2.5% reduction in VAT and how that loss in revenue is being reimbursed. Some are insinuating that the current administration are using accumulated funds from taxes to cover that loss. Former Independent Senator Evarista Jamari questions as to why loans were taken for road rehabilitation when a fuel tax was introduced for that purpose.
I think it's very clear that there was no fund set up, no lockbox to accumulate that 150 over the years, which should have gone to road repairs. No such thing existed. There was never any clarity when the question was asked. So you have to ask, the evidence suggests that there wasn't, because when the road program really started, it was financed by borrowing, when in fact that money should have been there, a large portion of it from the fuel excess $1.50 they were collecting on fuel excise tax. So, I mean, the 150 was ready to offset the loss of revenue as a consequence of reducing the VAT from 15 to 12.5%, and that's it.
Jamari goes on to say that the $1.50 increase in fuel tax is unfair to fishermen and has undoubtedly stifled the industry.
That decision, I think, affected fishermen disproportionately, because fuel is a big factor in terms of the operations at sea. They're not the ones, they're not using the roads in the way that perhaps minibus drivers are, and they got a bad deal. And I think the Labour government has decided that from very early o'clock that it was unfair, that they would, given the reasons for the excess fuel tax of 150, that they were they're not heavy users of the road per se, but more on the sea. So if you want to be fair about it, they were not really should be paying, suffering the burden of that.
Jamari estimates that $135 million has been collected over the last 5 years by way of the excise tax on fuel. Therefore, he believes that the government should not have borrowed as much money as they did for road maintenance and rehabilitation. Karim Nelson, Hot 7 TV, Election Central.
Stay with us, there's more news after the break.